What made you straight up nope out of a relationship? How about things that should have been red flags but I was too naive to recognize? Left notes on my car windshield when I was at work. A friend's house. The store seemed sweet, but I realized later that was my so keeping tabs on me, even when I didn't say where I was. Let me know how much a hitman cost and that it was cheaper than you'd expect. Would tell me something, and then later say that was a lie or a test, as though I should have figured that out instead of expecting the truth. Expected me to answer every call, and would get angry if I wanted to end the call first. Complained about my friends and family all the time. All of them. Apparently everyone I knew was manipulative and or rude. I didn't figure out this was an attempt to isolate me until after we broke up. He had already shown very jealous tendencies and had smacked me over the head because he thought I was looking at a guy, so it wasn't good already. We were outside of his friend's house and his friend asked how I was doing and he got mad at me for answering. I just got in my car and drove away. I kept having to call the cops to calm down my wife after she became addicted to a slew of prescription drugs. I told her doctors that opiates for a ruptured vertebrae, stimulants for ADHD, Ambien most nights to help her sleep and an assortment of others for anxiety and depression, and more to combat side effects, made her violent. One of the times that I called the cops to calm the situation down during a bad episode just made me cry. All he had to say was that he had already been there, and asked when it would stop. I thought I'd been holding things together reasonably well. I had an office job where no one knew what was up, though my work had suffered greatly. I kept clothes and food in my trunk, just in case I had to stay out for a bit because she had decided I was part of the conspiracy. I had a gym on the way to work I could where I could shower or just have some downtime. I did all of our housework and errands, because she couldn't work or do much of anything most of the time. Each time she cut herself she told the hospital it was an accident, and she always tried to go to a different one. We lived in a major metro, between hospitals. The cops saw through it. Being seen like that and knowing that even that lifestyle was running out hurt. I'm now recovering from the divorce and enjoying the calm. I still sometimes panic for no reason, and I feel more comfortable with clothes and food stashed in the trunk. But I feel much healthier. I get more sleep. My blood pressure has normalized. For the most part, I don't cry at work anymore. I received a message that clearly wasn't meant for me. We just had our first date which went really well. Calling me cheap and a slimeball and how I'm on my last chance to make things right on her coming birthday with lots of presents. I replied, hi, this is X. We just met and had one date. Was that message for someone else? She replied pretending to be her 12-year-old sister. Then apparently her dad messaged me with how he's told off his younger daughter. I'm out. Frick that crap. Wouldn't really call it a relationship as it was only 3 dates, but I had met this girl at a wedding. She was a friend of a friend and we shared numbers that night. Texted for a while and then had a date. First date was probably a big red flag, but I shrugged it off. We had connected on Facebook and she noticed that she went to college with a girl I went to high school with. No big deal, until I found out she had been messaging that girl and asking her all these questions about me in high school. Who did I date, what car I drove, etc. Anyway, third date rolls around. I wasn't really sure how long we would be together, so typically I wouldn't have taken her to a really nice restaurant so early in a relationship. But I was in the mood for steak, so I took her to a pretty high-end steakhouse. I have never been more embarrassed by someone's behavior in public in my life, and I have a 6 and 3-year-old at home now. She sent 3 martinis back because they weren't made correctly while being extremely insulting and rude about it. She ordered a steak medium and then got peeved because she insisted she ordered it medium rare. Both the waiter and I told her she had ordered medium. She was making comments about what other women in the restaurant were wearing, and not very subtly. Then, despite me trying to get out of there without buy her dessert, she got a dessert menu and expected them to make her something that they didn't have on the menu. They had cheesecake and she wanted chocolate cheesecake. Another outburst at the staff. On the way out the door she made a point to stop and complain to someone loud enough other customers could hear. When we got into my car I was so embarrassed I pretended I had left my credit card on the table so I could go back in. I gave the waiter an extra $20 and apologized, telling him I was dumping her as soon as I got to her place. He laughed and told me he wished he could see it. I didn't really give her a chance to say much. She called me a loser and stormed off. Haven't seen or heard from her since. One day he casually told me he has a wife and 2 daughters but was unhappy and his wife never suspects anything. Stalked me for 2 months to change my mind. Crazy guy. Met a girl on Tinder. We went for a coffee date. Shared some of the same music tastes. She lets me know that one of them is playing at a local club on Friday. I suggest we go together and do dinner before. Friday comes. We do a late sushi dinner and head to this club around 10 for the show. Headliner, who we wanted to see, went on around midnight. Get to the club. Finally get to the bar and order drinks, then head to the dance floor. She pounds a drink and says she is getting another drink. She comes back few minutes later with a new drink, gives me a kiss on the cheek and wanders off on the dance floor. I am not someone who is overly possessive and figure my wanting to be in the back to get a full visual and auditory experience is not her jam. All good. 20 minutes later I see her grinding on some dude. Now mentally, I am already back at my car but I want to see what happens when she makes eye contact with me. They start making out and the guy notices me eyeballing them. She wanders off to get another drink and he comes up to me asking if I have a problem. I explain the situation and he says something to the extent of "sucks bro. She is with me now. Frick off." Took his advice and did. Called up a friend and went to his house and played Kate until 2ish. Then my phone rings. It's 2:30 and she is calling me asking where I went. My car was missing from the parking lot. I told her I went home and she was on her own to find a ride. I bet that guy you were making out with could give you a ride, to which she responded with which one. We kissed once, made out 0 times. I laughed, hung up, and rolled for more bricks. Dang bro, wish I had friends to play Kate with. I told her I was going to leave her, and she said, "So you're going to leave me? Just like you left your brother?" My twin brother committed suicide in 2017, and she knew how much guilt I had over not being there for him. Such a manipulative, disgusting thing for any person to say, especially someone who claims to love you. I moved out 2 days later. Man, no one should have to go through such a thing. Glad that you got out of that relationship. Genuinely feared for my safety. I went over and we got in an argument, so I slept on the floor essentially. I went to the bathroom to text one of my buddies to come pick me up since I thought she had fallen asleep. I suddenly get a text from her saying, "Where are you?" and my phone made a sound. I froze up and opened the bathroom door and she was already standing there waiting for me in the darkness. She didn't say a word at all, just stared at me until I walked by. I went back to my spot on the floor and got under the blanket and pretended to be going asleep until she did. After about 30 minutes I decided to peek out from under the covers and she was literally towering over me in total darkness with her eyes wide open the entire time. I got the frick out of there so fast. Jesus Christ, it's like a sleep paralysis demon but real. She picked me because I had the same first name, general appearance, and lived in the same area of the state as her ex-fiancé of 2 years that she had just been dumped by a month before we met. I felt even more offended about all of that than just being straight up rejected. Next level rebound. Married for 6 years. Started out thinking she just struggled with depression and anxiety sometimes, but things kept escalating. I walked away when she started threatening to stab me in my sleep. We had already tried several couples therapists and individual therapists, but she refused to consider medication. I called her to meet up and try to find some closure, but she cut me off telling me I wasn't allowed to leave her and as punishment she was sleeping with 2 other guys. At that point I just ignored her number and filed for divorce. Hope she's doing well, but glad to not be afraid for my life. Not wanting to be stabbed in your sleep equals reasonable boundary. Good decision. My brother came to visit me. After I spent whole day with my GF, it was time to see my brother because we did not see each other for a long time. We prepared some snacks and about to start Lotta because both of us love Lotta. She called me and started a long conversation on phone. I said my brother waits for me and she said that I cannot spend my time with anyone because it belongs to her. It was last talk between 2 of us. It's either me or random family member been there. When he didn't want to have sex because he was grossed out by my period that I had finished 3 days prior. Noped out of that one real quick. when my now ex-wife came into the living room where I was sleeping on the couch after a fight and started lunging at me. She asked me if she reminded me of my stepdad who used to come in my room at night and stand over me before he dragged me out of bed by my ankles. He would then put the boots to me for whatever sins I had committed that day. She was the only person I had ever shared this with. She went out of town for work 2 days later, and when she came home I was gone and in another state. It was remarkable the amount of abuse I put up with to that point. It dawned on me then that if he had returned to my life I wouldn't let him hurt me, so there was no reason to let her abuse me either. I come from a molested abusive background myself, and a friend, whom I had confided in about it, told me he liked broken girls because they were easier to get and train to what I like, then started hitting on me. Yep, we're not friends anymore. I had a very long and toxic relationship with an ex. I had wanted to leave for years, but he would threaten to kill himself and I would end up staying. I finally got the courage to walk away when I was diagnosed with several benign liver tumors and was told by the doctor that it was very important with this type of tumor to immediately and permanently stop taking hormonal birth control. I researched it on my own and confirmed the single most important thing I could do to avoid further complications was to stop taking hormonal birth control for good. I told my then husband about the appointment and he said, so calmly, well, that's going to be a problem. I was like, what do you mean? I'll go to the gyno as soon as I can get an appointment and we can just use condoms until then. Nope. Condoms were unacceptable because we were married, and not having sex until I got to the gyno was also unacceptable. What really made my blood run cold though, was when he suggested that I should continue to take birth control as normal and just not tell the doctor. He'll never know, he said. Then he went on to suggest maybe I could go on and off birth control so I'd be off of it before any follow-up appointments with this doctor, to ensure that he'd never know. I was totally stunned and I just looked at him and said, you understand this could kill me? This isn't about placating a doctor, this is about my life. He just shrugged and said he wasn't using condoms and I needed to figure it out. I did figure it out. I left him more than a decade ago and have never been happier. It was already on the rocks and roughly around the time the millionth drunken argument happened. However, the moment that sealed it was when she said something to me along the lines of, if your dad wanted to be alive he would still be here. My dad died in a car accident 3 years before that. Immediately went from loving her enough to make it work to thinking she was the most vile person on earth. So sorry for your loss. You're correct about that girl being a vile piece of crap. We had been together for quite a while, 6-8 months, and lived together for at least 2 months when I decided to make tuna salad. I asked how he liked it. He told me. I came back with 2 bowls, half the can made his way, and half the can made the way I liked it. He completely freaked out. He said, if we can't agree on how to eat tuna, how will this ever work? I said that we don't have to agree. We can both have it exactly the way we want and be happy. He vehemently disagreed. I started thinking of all of his other controlling behavior and inability to compromise. It wasn't that day that we broke up, but it was definitely the day our relationship broke. The cheating didn't help either. Sounds like he liked someone else's tuna salad. She kept waking me up over and over all night trying to have an argument with me. The argument was about me going to sleep. He wanted me to grow out my pit and leg hair and texted, called, and emailed me repeatedly about it. It seemed like a pretty silly thing and he just had a little fetish, but after several days of this my sister said, why do you always attract the controlling freaks? And I finally had a moment of clarity. With someone who has very fast hair growth, this almost seems like a godsend, but they seemed pretty obsessed about it. He put a gun in my face and threatened to kill me. Noped right out even though we had been married for years and had kids. I wasn't going to be around for the day he actually pulled the trigger. Told everybody she knew about any little disagreement. Anytime I could be perceived unreasonable it was everyone's business. But somehow the surprises, special dates, lending her cousin rent money, all of that wasn't brought up. Just negative stuff was public knowledge. When she came home drunk one night, asking me if my brother had told me. Told me what? That I cheated on you with him? She taped photos of her ultrasounds of a child she lost custody of with masking tape around my apartment on her first visit to my apartment. We went to the mall and stopped by this little kiosk selling cookies. I decided that I would get one cookie. The lady working there said if I buy 2 I get 1 free. I decided to buy 2 and get the third one free. My date went off on this lady saying she's trying to scam me etc etc. He was legit yelling so loud that it was echoing through the mall. It was so embarrassing. If you're rude to people in customer service, you're not for me. My brother took a girl to a high-end sushi place and his date ordered 3x the food as he did. He just got a grilled salmon. She ate almost none of it and at the end she said she ordered all the extras so she could take some home for tomorrow. When the waiter showed up for the bill she excused herself to go to the bathroom. The waiter asked my brother if he wanted to split the check and at that point my brother did the right thing and stuck her with $100 worth of sushi and booze. The girl returned to see a huge check at her seat. I was going through some stuff in my early 20s and was pretty desperate for any kind of affection, which is the only reason I took a couple weeks to back out of this. The second time I ever met her, she told me to delete every girl's number from my phone, sister included. She then came over to my place, saw I had a full bookshelf and ridiculed me for being a reader, and in the same breath announced that she loves C so much and wanted me to try it. Finally, I escaped. But by then she was already sleeping with 2 of my friends, who are obviously no longer my friends. The good news is, I've now been happily married for 5 years and consider myself so incredibly lucky. He cancelled my order meal while I went to the bathroom because he thought I ordered too much. It was just small extra dumpling. I would legitimately be heartbroken if someone cancelled my food. She came to stay for the first time. It was the night before New Year's Eve and we were planning to go out drinking for New Year's Eve. I had just worked a 12-hour shift, carpet fitter so manual labor so I was exhausted. She had a few drinks and started to get aggressive because I wanted to just relax that night but she wanted to go out drinking. We broke up 3 days later. My father was an aggressive drunk when I was a kid so I could see how it would go. If you know you're an aggressive drunk, get off the drink man. I always say the same thing. I almost never drink, maybe once every 2 or 3 months, but I know that if I am angry about something, I just don't drink because I will be a dong to whomever I am with. Followed me to a night out, got on his knees stopping traffic in the middle of a city center street to declare his love. We had been on 2 dates. He also told me that same night he could see into the future and already knew he was going to die defending my honor while I was carrying out twins. Yeah, he was fun. He didn't have a car so I'd help him with rides to work. He worked 3rd shift at Toys R Us stocking shelves. I picked him up one night and he was so drunk he could barely stand. I made some comment about how he isn't going to be able to work. He started throwing crap at me in the parking lot. I threw his crap on the ground and left him there. I've dealt with one too many alcoholics and I wasn't wasting any more of my time. Cut to 5 years later he is now sober and getting married this year. So good for him. Did not expect a wholesome ending in this thread. I was dating a woman who was previously married and her ex had a 2-year-old child together. One night, she tells me of this plan to coach her daughter to claim this guy had molested her because she wanted full custody and didn't want this guy around anymore. I decided right then to bounce right the frick out of that relationship. Showed up late at my place one night because she couldn't sleep at her place alone. I was fine with that until she started talking about the reason why, when she was alone, the demons in the corners and edges of the room would fill the dark spots and watch with their glowing eyes. Urged her continuously to get help, to go to the doctor but she wouldn't do it. What she was seeing was real. I felt terrible leaving her for that but I wasn't equipped to deal with someone who needed professional help and refused it. When I wasn't allowed to hang out with my male friends in broad daylight but he thought it was okay to hang out with girls he didn't know in the middle of the night, was a major red flag. This one is surprisingly common. It's baffling. She told me she was on birth control. Turns out she thought drinking a lot of Mountain Dew would make it so she couldn't get pregnant. I have so many questions. She told me that if she hooked up with a girl it wouldn't be cheating because she always had wanted to do it. I already learned this lesson in the past. If someone tells you they are going to do something you should believe them. I dated this girl who was jealous. And I mean super jealous. I couldn't hang out with my friends without her constantly calling me. Obviously I couldn't do the same, because how could I be jealous? That would have meant I didn't trust her. That's annoying enough to end a relationship, but it was just the tip of the iceberg. After 9 months, I found out from one of my friends, who also happened to be a close friend of hers, that she had been hiding her sexuality to me. She was actually bi. At first I really didn't get why she did that, because I absolutely have no problem with these things. Mutual friend then told me that she was going around fricking other chicks. So basically she was hiding her bisexuality so that she could have sex with any girl she wanted to, without me even suspecting anything. Sometimes she even had threesomes with the girl's boyfriends. When I told her I knew everything, she started telling me that she didn't want me to know because those other people didn't really matter for her and she didn't love them. Needless to say, I noped the frick out of there. I had a somewhat similar experience, but I started dating this girl after knowing her a few months. Everything was cool, relationship was fun, until like a month in when she mentioned her boyfriend. Turns out, she thought bisexuality meant you get to pick a boyfriend and a girlfriend at the same time. She'd been with him for a year. I just blocked her. I am a black person. My bestest buddy in the whole wide world is a white person. We were roomies at one point. He brought a date over. I met her. Nothing weird. But as it turned out, she had problem with my bromeo living with a black person. Me. He immediately broke it off with her. I don't have many friends, but I'd like to think I got quality over quantity. What in the fricking frick? Bless your bromeo because what in the frick baby? He was violent when angry, like crazy angry. What did me in was when he sped up on a dark county road and turned off the headlights. We survived and as soon as we got into town I got out of the car and relationship. Kinda late, but he had left his phone at my house and got a text while in my possession thanking him for the awesome sex. When I confronted him about it, he tried to hit me. I couldn't call 911 fast enough. He took off before the cops arrived. A few days later, he arrives at my house unannounced and I walked out with a baseball bat. Never saw him again. Perfect response, lol, nip that game quick. We weren't in a relationship but I had a developing thing with a guy once. Until one day when I wasn't around he and some other friends of ours went to a bar and he sneakily slipped stronger alcohol into some other girl's drink there. This girl apparently was talking a lot with one of our other friends and not showing much attention to him. So he got jealous and threw this friend on the floor and started to strangle him. He was obviously thrown out of the bar after that and later tried to play it off as just a joke and just messing around. How do you jokingly try to strangle someone anyway? Anyway, I dropped this guy out of my life right after I found out. I definitely wouldn't want to be stuck with someone like that. You dodged a potential rapist. Congratulations. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.